Hi, and welcome to Ben's Business Podcast, episode number 25. Today, I've got my special guest, George Swift, with me today. George was one of the speakers at Expert Empires who I came to watch, and I was quite blown away with his talk, his speaking style, and the no-nonsense approach that you have. So I really enjoyed your speech. It was all along the lines of how to add a 100,000 to your business with group coaching and a mastermind, which was definitely something that I've been kind of looking for advice on for a long time. So when you came up as a speaker on that, I didn't know who you were before, but now I just sat to listen, and I learned a lot. So we went and met after your talk. I went and found you, and we had a wee chat. I had lots of questions for you, but I'm sure my questions towards you were interrupted with Ryan Dice coming into our conversation, and it was fair enough that you ended up speaking to Ryan Dice instead of me, which I think most people would have done the same in that situation.
I catch my 1 minute with him.
Yeah, no, but we finished off our chat, but there was just not enough time because we were back in listening to the next speaker. I think it was Andy Harrington was coming up, so we all went in to learn from him as well. So do you want to introduce yourself instead of myself?
Yeah. So, name's George Swift. The company's Bigger, Brighter, Bolder. I'm also the founder of BBB Success Groups, which is a business club and mentoring club. It's a mastermind. It's a group coaching model. We've got 85, I think it is, current members for businesses from startup all the way through to sort of £2.5 million turnovers. I also do private mentoring. So I work with, I call them corporates, not corporates, but like bigger, smaller owner-managed businesses. So, up to maybe 5 million, 10 million pound plus companies. And I work with their owners, their CEOs and their executives. And a lot of what I do is around mindset, attitude, behaviors. When I go into the sort of bigger companies, we look at culture. But what I was talking about at Expert Empires was really talking about the businesses that we've grown and how group coaching and masterminds and the club model got us out of that very limited one-to-one coaching and mentoring model and got us into a much more favorable mastermind model. So that's what I was there to talk about. So my day job is actually helping business owners develop mindsets and attitudes and behavioral skills for success. At Expert Empires, it was sharing as much knowledge as I could because they were our sort of crowd, right? There were experts in the room, there were mentors in the room, there were coaches. So it's really about trying to inspire those guys to maybe follow a little bit suit and just show people that there really is a group coaching model or a mastermind model out there for them, regardless of whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, or they consider themselves more of a facilitator style, or whether they're more of an expert, or, you know what I mean? Different personality types. People are aware of one particular type of mastermind. And what I used that stage for really was a forum to share the different types of models and the different ideas to hopefully promote what it is we do, which I think is awesome. It's great for us, but it's really good for coaches and mentors and experts as well.
Yeah. I learned a lot from your talk, and I could see that from all your ideas you were sharing, lots of ways I could possibly put that into action for a couple of the businesses that I've started, like we're chatting about Ben's Business Book Club, which started off as a hobby and now it's quite a thriving Facebook group with about around 900 members now.
Yeah.
And we had a chat about, because that was my question to you. I wrote that down when you were speaking.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, so there's potential mastermind and group business coaching for basically any coach or consultant out there. How does someone that has maybe a similar group to myself, like a group of people who are interested in a similar hobby, like reading business books. I also bring in and share some of my knowledge in the digital marketing space, especially search engine optimization and even websites. I build websites as well as my business, but also have that group where I kind of bring in my expertise, but mainly the group's for people who read books, and I try and keep it around that topic.
Yeah.
Someone who has maybe a similar group to myself and use it for the same reason as me, who are growing a community, what would be the best, like I remember you mentioned a couple of different models. What would be the best model? For example, I was interested in the online model. What would be the best model for something like that?
Yeah, I think the first thing I say, is to understand that if you don't already have a kind of what I call like a framework of influence or a field of influence, then launching a mastermind or a group coaching program or club, it's actually gonna be quite hard because if you want to get paid for this, you already have to have that kind of position. So really, my message on the day was very much geared towards that. I believe that if you already have influence, which you do with 900 odd people, if you already got a circle of influence, then I believe you can launch a model in 90 days. If you don't have that circle of influence, then obviously your first thing you've got to do is you've got to get that level of influence, right? So you've got to kind of position yourself in the marketplace. It's not about being an expert as such. You just have to have a community of people which respect you, like you, and think that you've got something to offer. So I think it depends really on what you are. See, if you're offering like an expert-led mastermind or online group where you want to share your knowledge, and we talked about your background with things like SEO, I think it was, and marketing. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you've got something to offer there, then of course what happens is people want to come to you and learn from you. However, equally, if you've got a big community like the book club and people just respect you as like the administrator of that club, equally, there is a model out there for you where you become the person, and what you're the expert in is pulling people, the like-minded people together. In fact, one of the guys I spoke to after my talk, he said to me, look, I work with doctors. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert in it. He said, but what I do have is a really big, strong network of doctors because what I do for the day job. He said, so I don't think it's going to work for me. And I said to him, no, 100%. If you've got the influence with the doctors, you don't have to be the expert in it. What you've got to be the expert in is running the forum, running the club, running the mastermind to get the most out of those people. So I think it really starts down with that, first of all, which is if you are an expert, if you've got something that people want to learn or want to hear and look up to you, then it's setting up a model potentially where you would create almost like I'm thinking about use about online. The obvious thing is a classroom environment, something we're looking into ourselves with online. And I think this is a trend, and it's not something that people do at all, really. There's an old model for online, which is where, like you'd film me on stage doing my talk, a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, seems ages ago now, but a couple of weeks ago, you film that talk and then I try and sell it for 1,200 quid online as a program. And that's kind of like the old model. Whereas I actually believe there's a new model for online where it's like the live environment. I think Facebook Live and that is showing that it's a live environment where it's still a live classroom, almost like a webinar or even a Facebook Live, where you run it like a classroom. It's interactive. And you run it, weekly, monthly, or whenever it is you decide the appropriate frequency should be for you. But you run it live. So if you're looking at online, yeah, you can do the fire and forget style. You can sit there and say, right, I'm going to record some content, chuck it up there, create a forum for people where they share ideas and everything else. And then what you do is you plug into that and just offer some expertise, or interviews like this. You don't have to be the expert. Again, you can just, if you're good at reaching out and inviting people in, you can invite people like myself in. I talk to your community. There's value to that. You go and talk to someone else. There's value to that. But I think for you, the first thing to really, really think about with anyone is a couple of things. Is like, who do you currently have influence with? So if it's a high net worth group, or that people that are willing to spend a lot of money on this stuff, and they're in a proximity that are close to you, then doing a 1 day round table sort of mastermind would be appropriate. I think if you're looking at a worldwide thing, I think you said only about a quarter of your members, I think, are actually in the UK. So you've got quite a big reach there. So of course, online, as you say, is the most obvious thing. But I think the first thing to look at is really what is it that you have to offer in terms of value to these people. So one of the things you definitely have, by the way, is all the other people. And there's real value to that. So, if you've got 900 people in a group, there's an actual value to having 900 people. If you created a spin-off group that had 20 people in it, where you were all talking about maybe your kind of day job, around SEO or around marketing, just the fact that you bring the other 19 people to the group adds value to that group.
Yeah.
As well as whatever expertise that you might bring. But it really starts with, I suppose, really thinking about what is it that you have to offer. And it doesn't have to be you personally, the skills that you have. It could be the leveraging of other people you have. It could be, if influential people, there's value to that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said in your talk, and kind of what you said there about, it was the Swiss cheese example of how the other people in that group, if you're doing a group coach or mastermind, that other people kind of plug the gaps for you when you're just kind of doing that administration role or organising it? The questions seem to get answered in the group as well. Could you maybe elaborate a wee bit more on that?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so most people are aware of the traditional mastermind model, right? Which is kind of what Napoleon Hill talked about and everything else, which is you have, 10 people, 8 people, 6 people, 12 people, whatever it might be, right? Average about 10 people. You have a round table environment. Everyone brings their own problems. Everyone brings their own solutions, and they all help each other out. Okay, and you kind of everyone has their turn, and you go around the circle, sort of thing. And that's like a traditional mastermind. I have a kind of hybrid version of that, so a version of that, and we run those as well. But for me, when I was talking about things like group coaching models and also club, and also you're talking about the online club and everything else, if you're leveraging the expertise of the people within the group, then I would also call that a mastermind. It's not what Napoleon Hill called a mastermind. It's not what a lot of people would think of as a mastermind. But actually, for me, you're missing a trick. If you've got a group of people and you're not leveraging the skills and the experience and the ideas within that group, then you're missing a huge opportunity. So for me, even if you were going to do like an expert-led online program, if you weren't leveraging the expertise of everyone else on that program, it'd be crazy. And as soon as you do that, it's a mastermind model. So what I shared there about the Swiss cheese model was, it was like, I'm not trying to draw it my hands now in front of him. Like, basically, if you imagine
I could do it on Zoom, but I'm not going to do it on live.
If you imagine, it gets very complicated. But yeah, if you imagine, it was like a Swiss cheese, right? It's basically like a square oblong plate, and that represented all of our skills, knowledge, our abilities, and within it, there's all these holes, right? And everyone's got holes in their game, right? And if you don't think you've got any gaps in your game, that's your biggest gap in your game, right? Yeah. So we've all got our gaps in our game. You've drawn it. There you go. I can see.
That's my notes from the talk.
So that's what we're talking about there. Awesome. I'm glad you got that right. So that's what it looks like, yeah? And then the idea is, and I can go into detail with you here, right? Because we're not against the time limits that I was there. What that model comes down to with those little kind of circles isn't necessarily Swiss cheese. What it comes from is in aviation or anything else. And if you imagine like any kind of metal piece, when you have one sheet of metal, there's going to be imperfections and flaws. No matter how well it's made, there's imperfection and flaws in that sheet of metal. Yeah. So what they do, instead of having, say, one piece of metal that's, say, 5 millimeters thick, they might have 5 1 millimeter sheets that are butted together. And the reason being that each sheet of metal has different weaknesses and different strengths. So when you butt them up together, the single piece of metal is much stronger than if you had just one piece of metal that was 5 millimeters thick. So that was like a sort of dumbed down version for the event. What it means is really, if you imagine there's gaps in your game, these big holes in your game, when you and I come together, you've got a different set of gaps in your game, and I've got a different set of gaps to you. I've also got different strengths, and you've got different strengths. When we butt up together, so to speak, right? When we butt up together, you cover. I can see where my brain's going now. It's going to sound terrible. You plug some of my holes, and I plug some of your holes, right? Okay. And if you bring a third, I can't think of another way of saying it. If you bring a third person in, they plug some of our holes, we plug some of their holes. I say gaps, right? And you get a fifth person, sixth person. So when you've got like 10 people in a room, we've all got different skills, different knowledge bases, different abilities. We've also got different gaps, different weaknesses, and different holes. So when they line up, you cover each other. So, for example, for me, in my own masterminds, which I run, I'm also a member, so I think it's really important. So I'm a member of my own mastermind. So I bring my goals. I'm held accountable by them.
Okay.
And obviously, I'm the expert in the room. Mindset, attitude, behavior, goal setting, cultures, creating success, accountability, all this sort of stuff. So that's my bag. So I kind of cover everyone with that. But when it comes to, say, for finances, for example, I'm terrible, right? I mean, I know the basics, but I've got an accountant in there who's like an FD accountant. So she covers us all on that. We've got a guy in there that does operations. We've got another guy in there that does systems and processes. We've got someone else in there that does AdWords. So between us, what happens is we've all got our own weaknesses. We've all got our own strengths. And together, we are much stronger as a whole. And no matter what you're doing, whether it's a club, you do it a little bit. I mean, in a way, when, if I read a book and I share my feedback on the book or my learning on a book, my take might be slightly different from your take. So any kind of book club like this, and what happens is I hear something different to what you hear, and when we share each other's notes about a book, we actually get more learning. Because there's things that I didn't get, or I just didn't hear it the way you heard it. So it's that. So again, just with your book club, you're leveraging the experiences within that. So as soon as you do that, I call that a mastermind. I'm being flippant with the term. It's not what most people would consider.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like I heard 1 + 1 = 3. Bad maths, but you get the meaning of it. Is you put two strong people together, and they can make much more than they can do on their own.
For sure. Yeah. And the truth is, you can't do it on your own. Obviously, it's a business book club you run. So I'm assuming most of them are business owners or want to be business owners, or they're certainly in business anyway. Otherwise, it's a bit of perverse read to read business books if you're not in business. Not the most fun thing in the world if you're not into business. But yeah, you know, when you get those people together and you get those different skills and knowledges, but even different angles, like perceptions of how you see the world. So, you know, I always say one of the most dangerous things you can have is this tunnel focus where you only look at the world through one particular way or one particular vision. Now, the problem we've got is we can only see it through the way we see it. I can't see the world through your perceptions. I can only see it through my own perceptions. What happens, of course, though, is if you and I share our taking away of our observations, or we share our perception of something, I get to see it through your eyes, albeit like sort of secondhand. That opens up my awareness of what I'm seeing. So again, another powerful thing about, you know, being in a group and being open to sharing ideas, and that is actually you see the world based on your understanding, which is limited by your experiences of life, and I see the world through my perceptions, which is limited by my experience of life. Together, we get a wider perception of the world, and of course, that's incredibly powerful. So, you know, again, for anyone on here, I think, you know, even if you're not, you know, for me personally, you know, you should be in a group, you should be in a mastermind, you should be in something that's organized, where you are a collective of sharing ideas, you're open to new perceptions and everything else. Because I think the biggest danger in life is that we only see the world through one particular lens. And then what happens is we'll watch the programs that align with what we already believe to be true. We read newspapers that tell us what we already believe to be true. I always say, you know, if you're a Daily Mail reader, you're not going to read the Telegraph, right? But you probably should, because that's where you're going to see an opposing view. But we don't want to see an opposing view. We want to see the world the way we want to see the world. So by getting into a group of people where you really respect, if you say to me, and I respect you, George, you know what, I see it this way. If I respect you, then it forces me to sort of step back a bit and see the world or see the situation in a different light. And in doing so, we both grow, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like I just drew this here. It's like I seen
I wish I bought I'm 69. I wish I bought my own pen and paper now. No, a bit of yin and yang,
Yeah. So it depends on where you're seeing it from, but that makes a lot of sense.
And it's all and all of that is the power of masterminds. You know, I only had 45 minutes and I had to talk a lot of stuff, but all of that is the power you get from being in a group of, I say like-minded. What I mean by that is we're not all seeing the world in the same way, but we're like-minded in terms of we're trying to grow, we're trying to better ourselves, we're trying to improve ourselves, we're trying to be, you know, we want to be better. We want to be better, do better, get better. And if you've got a group of people like that, you're rocking.
I love that idea that there's someone who knows their finances well, and that kind of fixes that gap. It's a good example of that Swiss cheese idea, because my dad always talks about how his massive weakness in his area is like having an accountant doing his work for him, and he just lost his accountant because the business switched over, and now he's kind of managing some of it himself until he finds a new one. And that makes a lot of sense, because if you could find someone who can look at that in a different way and with the skills to kind of help you there and then, that would be really useful. Do you think it's important to be picky on the people you bring in, but like almost as a strategy for yourself as the facilitator as well? One of the things we talked about, we touched on, was filling your mastermind or your group. And it's not, you know, yes, it is a sales process, right? You know, and it is a funnel. You know, someone said to me, "Is it a funnel?" Well, yeah, it is a funnel. You know, I'm sure your listeners know what I'm talking about. It's a funnel where you take someone that doesn't know you and you bring them through to ultimately being a client of yours. However, with anything like a mastermind or a club, it's not a short-term transaction. It's not like I sell you something and then you go. If I sell you on something, you're now in my life for the next 12 months, 2 years, or however long you're a member. So I've got to make sure that this relationship works really well. And I think it's one of the hard things to do is to say no to people. And I think the smaller the group, the tighter you have to be on that policing. I think, you know, with a book club with 1,000 people, if you got someone in there who's a bit disruptive, you kick that person out. No one would even know that person was there and when. It'd be so, it doesn't count 1 in 1,000 people. But if you had a room of 10 people and you bring in one, arsehole, right? It can absolutely destroy your culture.
and you have to deal with that. And it is part and parcel of running a club that, you know, it's like, even though they're paying you, they're your clients. Sometimes you have to police people, right? And the first thing you try and do is obviously correct the behavior. You try and help them. The second thing is, you know, you have to get rid of them. What's better, of course, is if you pre-vet them when they don't get in. And it can be really hard, especially if this is a business thing you're trying to do. If you're setting up I don't know, what do you want to call it? Like not a charitable thing, but you're doing it for the cause or whatever. That's one thing. But when someone's got money, and if we're talking about like a high-end mastermind, you're talking about maybe £1,000 a month in someone's hand.
Turning down a lot of money.
So it can be hard for me to say no. I mean, even now, right? It's not easy for me with someone's got £1,000 in their hand a month, right? And our average membership is, you know, it's probably more like nearly 3 years now. You think that guy represents maybe 36 grand to me over the next 3 years. To say to them, it's not right for you is really hard. But when you're creating these groups and these clubs, you have to realize that actually it might be the slower way of growing your business or growing your club, but it's definitely the smart way. And it's the only way you're going to have long-term success, because I've seen so many people run clubs and they disintegrate from the inside out because they have the wrong people. This is what I'm an expert in. I mean, I say expert. I hate using the word I'm an expert, right? I'm a bloody hell. Because we're always learning. Like, yeah, everyone says, I'm an expert, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we're always learning, right? I've got so much still to learn and everything else. But this is what I do for a day job, you know, it's culture. So we look at cultures, and it's really important to set the tone of your club. And I see you doing it because I've watched even since I've come back. I look at what you're doing in the book club. You do set a tone, and you're like a metronome that the club works to. And it's good because it gives everyone a chance to get into rhythm and get into beat with what you're trying to do. Because the culture is what is going to make or break any organization and any kind of group or club or whatever. It is down to the cohesiveness of it. And it's not that everyone has to be the same, and it's not that everyone has to have the same agenda. It's just we've all got to be moving in the same direction. Yeah. And we've all got to have enough in common so we don't disrupt or derail what we're doing. Otherwise, it ends up like a debating society, you know, where you have antagonists and protagonists, and you end up just battling it out. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're just trolling each other in a group, because it's just like, I don't know, like arguing for the sake of arguing. So you want to have that kind of common agenda, whilst also having the diversity and everything else within it. It's a balance. It's a real balancing act, and it is something that is a skill. It's a bit like in corporate, when I go into businesses and stuff, we talk about culture. You don't want everyone the same. That's a nightmare, having everyone the same, because you know that you miss so many different angles. If we're all salesmen or all drivers or all directors or all leaders or we're all, you know, I don't know, we're all extroverts, you know, it's a nightmare. Same as if we're all introverts or we're all this, or we're all kind of like, you know, accountancy type ponderers. It doesn't work. You need the diversity, but you have to have enough commonality. Otherwise, what happens is these things implode from the center out. And it's the same with a club or membership site or anything, you know. And again, the smaller the numbers, the tighter it is. You know, if you've got a company with 10,000 employees, again, you can afford to have a few idiots in there. It's not going to make any difference. It might make a difference to the one or two people near them, but to your company, if you're a 5-man company and one person in there doesn't fit or doesn't gel with the culture, it can destroy your business. Certainly make life miserable for everyone. Yeah.
And I think like the difference is, like you're saying, is a good thing. And even some positive debates or disagreements as well can really help you think in that different perspective as well, when you listen to people who you respect.
Yeah, exactly that.
Important.
Exactly. You know this, right? If you respect an opinion of someone and you see them as intelligent, smart, knowledgeable, whatever, I can't look up to you and admire what you're saying and then just disagree with you because you say something different to me. My brain can't do that because it throws me. You know, it's like if you go to you see your gurus on stage and you think, we're aligned, and they say something you disagree with. Your immediate reaction is to get a bit angry with them or disagree with them. But your brain says, hang on a minute. If I believe, like, if I'm on board with 95% of what this person's saying, what are the chances that he's wrong on that 5%? You know what I mean? It's like, what, you know, do you know what I mean? And it just throws us a little bit. Yeah. And it's good for us. What you don't want to do, though, is when I talk about the debating society, is where you have too many completely opposing ideas. You know, like, for example, if you're in my mastermind and I'm talking about business growth and I'm talking about money, financial success, and I'm talking about personal development, I'm talking about mindset, I'm talking about these. If you don't believe that any of that is important, we are never going to get on in a mastermind. We can't even agree on the basics. I think you want to have enough of the basics in common, and then you have that diversity around that. So all my masterminds, everyone in that mastermind is up for personal development. Everyone's up for goal setting. Everyone's up for being held accountable. Everybody's open to what I'm saying to you now, which is there's gaps in my game. You know, I don't know everything. I can't possibly know everything. Everyone's respectful of each other. You know, it's like they're like your foundations in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Within that, you want diversification. Age, by the way, is brilliant. You know, a lot of my groups I love. Some of the greatest relationships that have been formed in my groups have been with much maturer, more successful businesses with much younger startups. And what's lovely about that is it's obvious normally to see what the startup might have. You know, so let's say someone in their 20s, and I've got a guy who's in his 50s and he's running a £2.5 million business. He's got 20 people and everything else. It's obvious what the 20-something-year-old has to gain from the 50-year-old with all that experience. But actually, it goes the other way as well, because what happens is as we're in business longer, as we live longer, we can get a little bit fixated in our views. We can get a little bit, sometimes we can get a little bit jaundiced. We can get a little bit, a little bit, whatever. There's something exciting about the naivety of a new business owner that is a bit like a grandparent playing with a grandchild. It brings out the child in you.
Yeah.
It's like, so when the startup comes into a room with someone who's been in business for 20 years and doing millions, and the startup comes in, there's a naivety in that startup, which is actually really attractive to the mature business. So when I do my masterminds, I love that diversification of ages. I also love the difference in businesses. So my mastermind, you have to be doing 6 figures minimum, just because you've got to get the basics out of the way. But there's people in there from 100 grand or 150 grand all the way up to 2.5 million. In my success group, there's people in there who are literally starting up all the way through to, I think our top one in there is probably knocking on about 1 million. And I just love that diversification. So again, age, culture, background, all of that, just that diversification is awesome, as long as the, what do you want to call it? I don't know, like your core ideologies are the same, or your core values are the same.
Values,
It's that. As long as that's in place,
yeah,
as much diversification as possible is bloody awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Another thing I wanted to touch on is, like, for example, say you've never run a workshop, you've never done group coaching or a mastermind. Yep. You've done lots of one-to-one coaching, and I've done lots of that. Yep. Someone like me who's done lots of one-to-one coaching, I don't know if it was you that said, or it might have been one of the other speakers, but that you're an absolute expert when it comes to one-to-one coaching. Like, when you get in that room with one-to-one with someone and you just speak what you know, your expertise, you're a superstar. And then the thought of doing a group coaching session, you might find that a lot more difficult. I guess it's a totally different skill. So I've got that, and I've got a second part. But in that situation, how does someone build up the courage or confidence to decide to take on, like, because I can do 1 to 2 at the moment. I've run a Toastmaster room and things like that. But how do you step that up? Do you take on 1 to 3, or do you just build it up slowly? Yeah,
no, it's interesting, isn't it? So for me, I think, again, it depends. It really depends on your skill set and everything else. So if you've literally done nothing on a group scale at all, no group teaching, no group instruction, anything like that, then of course there's a skill there you're going to have to learn. For me, just thinking now, talking to you, a really good way of doing that, I'm kind of thinking how I got into this, because I had to do a lot of group teaching and instruction through various different jobs. I used to lecture at university for a while, so that's a teaching to a group of people. Okay. Going right back to when I was 18 years old, I used to run martial arts clubs and kickboxing clubs, and I used to run self-defense seminars. So I'm going back a while now, because what I did was I went into the coaching side of things and got into the business stuff, and then I kind of merged those two backgrounds, So I had the experience of running a room and controlling a room, and I had the experience with the one-to-one stuff, and you merge those. I think for someone that's had no experience with group coaching, it is a very different skill set, because if you're in the front of the room teaching, that's one thing, but there's a real, like, a room craft, keeping people engaged. You've got to monitor that room, you've got to really, are you hitting the mark? So if you and I having a one-to-one, I say, does that make sense, Ben? And you'll say, yeah, it does. Or you'll say, no, I'm not quite sure. We have a chat. When you've got 50 people in a room, you can't ask that question. What you do, I say to people, you say, right, we're on board, and I'm looking for enough nods. I don't do this right hand, left hand stuff. You saw a lot of that weekend. I don't do that sort of stuff. What I'm looking for is a nod. I'm looking for you to nod. If I see you nodding, you've got it. I can move on. So I'm looking for enough nods. And if 3/4 of the room are nodding, we can move on, right? The other quarter will catch up. If like there's all these blank faces, you've got to read that. So one of the big skills of doing a room presentation is being able to kind of know your subject, deliver your subject, whilst also monitoring the room, and how's it going down. And I think that's a skill you just have to learn, because it's a bit like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. You know, there's two things there. I'm reading a room whilst delivering my content. Number one, but away on that, you better know your shit. See, if you don't know what you're talking about, you're thinking so much about what you're saying that you can't possibly also be reading the room. Whereas if you know your stuff inside and out, you know, you really know what you're talking about, and you can adapt to anything else. You can almost talk like this, and it's like you're just playing a recording. Yeah. And then it gives you, so half of you's doing this and half of you's reading the room. And then I can start seeing, and you can start nodding people, you can see people, and you can start smiling at people. And that's a craft. And it is like this, patting your head and rubbing your stomach. You know, it's that I'm delivering my message. I'm really hitting home on my message. I'm listening to myself, because that's really important. You know, I'm not just broadcasting. I'm also monitoring what I'm saying. Okay. And while I'm doing that, I'm also reading a room and trying to engage with a room and see, am I hitting mark? Going back to your question, the answer is really simple. It's start running group sessions. I wouldn't sit there necessarily and say, right, do I go from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5? There's different schools of thought on this. That's one way. The other way is get yourself 10, 15 people and just jump in there and learn. I think with my background, it was, you know, it was starting in a safer environment. So you start with something you definitely know and understand, not a hostile room. It's a bit like being if you want to become a stand-up comic, don't go to a hostile room for your first, second or third gig, right? Because it's going to destroy you. You want to be around friends and supporters and whatever. So for me, if you've got people already, if you've got a group of one-to-one clients, if you've had 10 one-to-one clients, invite them for a 1 day, invite them for a half a day, invite them for a 2-hour talk, and do it. This is how we launched success groups, by the way. We had we got 20 of our A-star clients that we had, both current and previous. And we got them in a room and said, right, this is what we're looking at, success groups. This is what we're pitching. This is how it's going to work. I'd love to get your feedback on this model, because you're the sort of people that would be perfect for this. So I really respect your opinion on this. Like, you know, this is what we want to charge and this is how we want to run it. We took their feedback, and then we turned around and obviously said to them and saying, of course, would you be interested? And we had 10 people out of 20, because they already had that respect for us and everything else. And we literally launched success groups that way. So if you're used to doing that, you know, get them together, just start. I know it sounds really crazy. Just start. You mentioned Toastmasters and that. I mean, it's good for getting your confidence up with speaking. But for most people, I say, honestly, your best bet is just to start doing it. So don't go jump in front of expert empires and 500, 600. You know, that I mean, that's terrifying. I mean, even I speak all day long and all week long. I mean, that's terrifying stuff, that is, when you go up there and the lights in your face and the music's playing and there's all those hundreds of people there.
Could you see the crowd from there? Because I heard a lot of speakers saying they couldn't see anyone.
There's these big lights, right? So you see the lights hitting your face. You can see about 5 rows back, and then it kind of fades into the distance. But what you can see, of course, is as you're walking up to the stage, you can see them. Yeah. So as you're walking, before the lights hit you in the face, you can see them. And more importantly, you know they're there, you know? But what you do is actually, here's a little thing. What you do is you stare at the light, because I know there's people there. I just don't know where they are. So you just stare and nod and stare, because you can't see forever.
So for me, your body language, You
just. So I think what you said is, how do you start? I think it's that start. I think get yourself a. If you're really nervous about this stuff and you're not particularly good at it or whatever, it's you know what, just get a group of people together, start running some events, start running some talks. This is what we did in this business. We started running talks for 2.5 hours, £5, seriously, to cover coffee is what we were charging. This is about 9 years ago, right? So we were charging £5 for coffee. And I remember once I had 2 people in the room, you know, and I've never cancelled one, right? Even if 2 people were there, I would deliver to 2 people. I would deliver to 2 people like it was 200 people. They'd get everything. I'd give them everything I had. And you just condition yourself and you train yourself, and you start from there, right? Because when you make confidence, you use the word confidence. You can talk yourself all day long, right? You can have a conversation. You can sit there and say, this isn't real and that isn't real and all that kind of stuff. The bottom line is with fears, you have to show yourself it's not real. And the only way you can really show yourself it's not real is by doing it. So you kind of do it. Your brain says, that was okay. Hopefully it was fun. So you want to go and do it again. And then you do it again. And then you organically, your groups will grow, because as you get better at it, more people will come to listen to you. As your business grows, you'll have more clients and more people come. So by the time you end up talking to 50 people, the chances are you've earned your way to that point, rather than just turning up. I can't imagine anyone putting you in front of 50 people when you've never spoken to anyone. I'm not sure who that would be. So the chances are you're going to have to talk, to the small groups, and then you build and build.
Yeah, you build up from there. Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful for me even, and I guess it'll be very helpful to anyone else that's considering
Well, it's
starting.
terrifying. I mean, for a lot of people, there's a lot of things about public speaking. Um, um, a lot of it is lack of confidence, right? And the lack of confidence normally comes from a couple of things, right? So it either comes from, who am I to do this? What have I got to offer? You know, it's that kind
Yeah,
of, it's a bit like, you know, asking out the nicest looking girl, or the nicest looking guy in the bar, or whatever. You know, all those doubts creep into your head. You know, who
yeah,
am I? Am I good enough? Why would they be interested in me? So, honestly, when you go on stage, it's the same fears. When you go and ask a girl out or a guy out, it's exactly the same fears, which is, you know, why would they be interested in me? And a lot of speakers, we have that whole feeling, you know, who am I to be here? Why would they want to listen to me? What, do you know what I mean? And it's that.
yeah,
And the other fear, of course, is you think something terrible is going to happen. Like they're going to judge you, they're going to, you know, laugh at you, ridicule, I don't know, whatever it is. You know, there's a whole load of things your brain will tell you
yeah,
about it. So you've got the not good enough kind of threat and all the different versions of that, and
yeah,
then all the terrible things that could happen. And of course, you've got those two things going for your head, and you stand up on stage. That's your head full now. I said you had two things in your head. One is, what am I saying? Two is reading the room. But if two things in your head is, number one, why the hell would they listen to me? Number two, they're going to laugh at me, ridicule me, reject me. There's not a lot of space now.
yeah,
And that's when you see people turn into,
yeah, yeah. So you have
right,
to get good headspace and have that focus on the two things.
yeah, you have to trust yourself. This
Yeah,
is why, you know, again, most people, you know, I'm sure you've been around, you know, long enough now, right? Some people have very misplaced confidence in themselves, right? Like they really, you know, it's like they really believe they're so much better than they are. They're so rare, those people. Most people really are the other end. Most people are a lot better than they think. And
yeah,
there's a handful of people out there who are disillusioned, who are disillusional. For most of us, actually, we're a lot better than we think we are. You know, and it's you have to trust that. You have to trust
yeah,
that.
yeah,
This is why I talk about, you know, if you've already got a circle of influence, you have to trust, right, Ben? If 900 and whatever people want to be part of your club, you have to trust that enough of them want to hear from you. You
yeah,
know, you might not know for sure, because they're not saying, Ben, please talk to me. Ben, you're so amazing. It'd be nice if we got constant reassurance like that. But you just have to trust, don't you? Say, hang on a minute,
yeah,
these 20 people turned up, you know, in Expert Empires. You know, I have to trust that Nick James, who ran Expert Empires, I have to trust that he wouldn't put me on stage if he didn't think that I had something to say. I have to trust that the
yeah,
people in that room want to hear what I've got to say, you know, because you still have those doubts. You put a big audience, all you do is magnify the audience, you magnify the fear. So
yeah,
you put me in front of 30, 40, 50 people, no problem. 100 people, no problem. 200, no problem. 500 people, I start to shit myself. And when you do, it's the same doubts that come in, which is, oh my God, there's 500 people here. The opportunity for rejection is so much bigger. The opportunity for ridicule is so much bigger.
yeah,
It's the same deal. You have to, you know, it's just trust yourself. It's, you know, you can't have total certainty in yourself. You just want to have faith in yourself, faith in your content, faith in the other people, trust that
yeah,
they want to hear what I've got to say. Trust that even if I don't do a brilliant job, I'll still pass on something that is of use. Do you know what I mean? Because if we
yeah,
can get rid of that tension and get rid of that stress and get rid of that pressure and those fears, it clears our head to
yes,
stop performing at our best.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's just, you know, you're just operating through a blanket of fear, you know, and
yeah.
it screws everything up.
Yeah, yeah, you're putting too much to the fears. It's like doing Facebook Live for the first time. It was more scary than the second time, and then the third time,
Right.
it's almost gone. And then it's really just the courage up front to go through those fears, and then
100%. And do you know what it is? That's what it's about. It's because, you know, people talk about being brave, or, oh my God, you're so brave, or that's so brave. Or you look at someone that's gone through something and you'll say, oh, you're so brave. I wouldn't be that brave. Of course, you know, it's only brave if you have fear anyway, right? Because, you
yeah,
know, everyone has different things they're scared of. So some people just aren't scared of speaking on stage, and
yeah,
they just aren't, right? I mean, most people are, by the way. I mean, it's the number one fear in the Western world. So we're in good company. Most people are fearful on stage. Some people aren't. Some people are scared of spiders. Some people are snakes. So if I'm not scared of snakes and I handle a snake, but you're scared of snakes, it doesn't make me brave. What makes you brave is you handling snakes, because you have a fear of snakes.
yeah,
And I think in life, that's one of the skills we have to develop, is bravery. You know, I think what a lot of people do when you're fearful, and, you know, I was known as the fear guy in business for a long time because of my previous backgrounds and things.
okay,
I understood how fear manifested in many ways, and then how it manifested in corporations and business owners, and how it manifested through teams of people. And one of the things I talk about with fear all the time is that you're not going to get rid of it. Like people think I have to get rid of my fear. I have to conquer my fear. I have to whatever. It's not, because you'll do one Facebook Live, then a second, and then the fear subsides, because what you're doing is you're showing yourself that now I'm safe and I'm not going to die and I'm quite good at this, and your confidence builds. But actually, if you only did that sort of Facebook Live activity, you're not growing. So what happens is you grow to the next level of an individual, or you grow to the next level in your business. Guess what? You're confronted with the next thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm comfortable doing 1-to-1, then I'm comfortable doing 5-to-1, then I'm comfortable doing 10-to-1.
You have to keep pushing it beyond your limit.
If you want to grow, you're always going to hit that barrier of fear. So one of the skills you want to develop is bravery, because one of the things that's going to be constant is that the same things won't scare you, or they might not scare you in the same way. But if you're going to keep what I call leveling up in life or leveling up in business, one of those constant barriers that's always going to be waiting for you, and it never goes away. By the way, it never goes away. When you do that first live to no one, and you crap yourself, and then if you go live to 100 people, you'll crap yourself again. You won't. But then if you hang at 100 forever, you'll get very comfortable with that. But if you want to grow, you have to go to 200 or 500 if you're going to do stages. That Expert Empires was the biggest stage I've done. I think the biggest I've done to that point was I spoke in Switzerland, and there was about 300 or so there. I did a keynote to about 350 people. So Expert Empires was about 150 or so in the room. I had about 500 in the room at the end. That's a big chunk more, but it wasn't just the number of people that was more. The whole event was bigger, the whole venue was bigger, the whole thing was bigger, the speakers were bigger, Grant Cardone was there. It was just a big deal. So of course what happens is you go there and you're like, oh my god, this feels very familiar. It's no different. It's the same fear that I had when I spoke to 5 people 9 years ago. And if I go to 1,000 people, guess what? I'm gonna have it again. If I keep talking to 500 people, then I'll get confident with that, and I won't have any fear. If I want to go to 1,000 or go and speak at the O2 or something, guess what? It's going to come back again. So what we have to develop is not necessarily trying to conquer fear, not necessarily trying to beat fear, because you're right. The way you overcome fear is by you do it, you live, you survive, you learn from it, you go, this is okay, and you go again. That's not the skill. The skill actually is in developing the courage to be able to put yourself into that uncomfortable place in the first time, whatever it is in life. That's the success for me. I used to have a saying, which a lot of people disagree with me, which was, rarely is the outcome as important as taking the action. Because if you become someone that takes the action, you will get the outcome eventually. You might not get the outcome now, but you'll get the outcome eventually. But also you're becoming someone that takes the action when it would be easy to not. And if every time, not every single time in the world, like, it's not like Susan Jeffers, feel the fear and do it anyway, by the way. It's not about being a maniac and constantly doing things that scare you. It's just saying, when I'm here and I want to get to here in life or my business, and these are the fears or the blocks on my way, I can sit here and therapize myself to death trying to overcome my fear, or what I can do is cultivate the courage and the bravery that enables me to step forward, even when I'm confronted with that fear. And for me, I used to have another little quote to say all the time, which is about empowerment, personal empowerment. And I said, personal empowerment is not the absence of fear; it's the awareness of the presence of choice. So what that means is like, I'm scared, but I still have the choice. I'm fearful, but I have the choice. So a lot of people don't feel that. They're scared.
I think that's it.
They back away. They back away. And it's not about bravado, keep charging forward, bang, bang. It's not. It's saying, okay, so here I am. Once again, I'm crapping myself because I'm in this new environment, I'm in this new space, I'm in this scary place. But I have a choice. I can step back, and it's an absolutely legitimate choice. I can step back and not do it, or I can step forward and just accept that I'm going to have this experience of fear. And once you're aware of that opportunity of that choice, now you have personal empowerment. Yeah,
that's really interesting. It reminds me of a saying by Pericles. He said, the secret to happiness is freedom, and the secret to freedom is courage. It works in that direction. It's really, really true, because what will cause you to be unhappy is because you didn't have that courage, and that caused the freedom, which causes the happiness. And I always kind of try to remember that saying in a state of fear.
Well, and that's the hard part, isn't it? Right? It's like all this kind of personal development. So one of my backgrounds, I can't remember if I talked to you about this, but one of my backgrounds, which I just touched on earlier in this talk, was I used to deal with like self-defense and stuff like this, right? So I used to do like so I my background was martial arts, and martial arts into competitive fighting, and from there I went in and trained with people who were top of the game in terms of street fighting, right? So these are people that, talk like street fighting techniques. So, sort of stuff that doorman would be taught, or unarmed combat or whatever. And I went down that route and I started teaching self-defense, interestingly. And when you're in those situations, those heightened kind of fearful situations and everything else, the problem you've got is that you can't pull out your kit bag, the stuff you need, right? So I used to have a methodology, and it's something that I still rule my life by today. So if you ever sit on any of my content, Swiss cheese model, right? It's really simple shit. It's like, because it's like we could sit here and have a really academic conversation about courage, or we could have a really academic conversation about what it is to be, I don't know, a human being or whatever. But when you are having a fearful state or anxiety or whatever, you're not going to be able to recall, because your brain doesn't work like that. You can't recall. Let me think. What was it that neurosurgeon told me about the epicenter of the blood? It's not going to remember it, right? What you have to remember is the really simple stuff. So what I used to have was what I call a SAFE methodology, right? SAFE. And it goes back to my self-defense days. Because if what I was teaching didn't pass the SAFE methodology as designed by myself, I wouldn't teach it. And it's the same thing with my content today. If it doesn't follow the SAFE methodology, then I don't teach it, right? Because otherwise we end up just teaching academics for the sake of academics. So the SAFE methodology is that, first and foremost, right, is that when you need this thing, okay, you need to be able to access it, right? So you need to access it. It needs to be functional, so it needs to be able to use it and do what it needs to do, and whatever it might be, to make sense. And he was effective. I'm trying to remember what the bloody S was now, for the life of me. S. Forgot my S. Okay. But anyway, yeah, what's it called? Bloody hell. Something. Anyway, so accessible is number 2. Accessible. So it has to be accessible. In other words, when you're scared, what I teach you about fear, it has to be accessible, where it has to be functional, right? It has to do what it needs to do, and effective. It must get the result. And I will remember what the bloody S is.
Yeah.
You know what? I refer to it as safe, but I'm not even remember what the S is. I'm going to come. Simple. Fucking simple. I pulled my earpiece out. Yeah, simple.
Yeah.
I've got over animated then for a minute, Ben. Yeah, simple. Yeah. Simple, effective, functional, and effective. Simple, accessible, functional, effective. And I think if you condense most of this stuff down to that level, now you've got something which you can use when you're freaking out. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I agree. It shouldn't be complicated, or I think it's, don't put your cleverness in front of your communication. So just keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Well, the nicest thing some people ever say to me, is that they'll look at me and they'll listen to me, and after a little while they say, "You're a lot smarter than you seem." Right? And it's like, you know what? It's like, yeah, okay, brilliant. I like that. It's in terms of the street fighting days, we call that the sucker punch. It's the one you don't see coming. When I used to go into corporate and stuff, I'd turn up dressed like this, and they didn't know what to make of me. And before I know it, we're getting to the real root of the problem. Because what we used to do is you go to corporate and you end up tackling the problem at a corporate level or an executive level. And everyone's saying, yes, our strategy for this and our da-da-da for this and our forecast. And we're operating at this level. We're not getting to the root cause of the problem. I need to get into under here, the humanness.
Yeah.
So sometimes what you can do is, the really simple, accessible stuff, it cuts away all that crap at the top. We get to the sort of the rawness of the situation underneath. And when you're there, you can actually do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. We went a lot into the courage thing. Just off the back of that.
Go on.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Courage. How do you build your courage? Do you think that's doable?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
what are 3 ways to build your courage?
Nurture nature. Okay, I'll see. I'll see. I don't have 3 in my head, but we'll see where I go with it, right? So nurture nature is a big debate, right? So I choose personally, I choose to ignore nature, because what's the point? If I'm limited by some genetic makeup, it doesn't serve me to feel that way. Okay. So for me, it's not about, so I err on the side of nurture, which basically I believe that we can change anything about ourselves. I believe we can change anything about ourselves. We can't do everything. There's too much to do. We can't do everything at once, but we can change absolutely anything about ourselves. I truly believe that. If they found a gene that said, here's a gene for courage, then it would give everybody who didn't have courage an excuse for not developing themselves. Makes sense? Yeah. Well, it's my genes. Oh, well, of course I can't pass a degree because my genes. Even if there is a gene that says you're smart or not smart, it may limit you when you're operating at the highest level. But it's not going to limit you at the base. Of most human beings, we're operating at such a low level that we're not even coming close to our potential. So even if our genetics or our nature has got a limit to it, most of us, we never get close to that because we don't develop it. So when it comes to things like developing your confidence, or bravery or courage or whatever it might be, I think you want to start, number one, there's 3 ways we learn, right? So here's your 3 things. There's 3 ways we learn. One is direct experience. And this trumps everything, okay? So this is what's happened to me in my life, and this creates a worldview, and it creates a reality in me based on what's real for me. Also witnessed experience. So when I see stuff happening to you, I learn from that as well. And the third one is taught experience. So ultimately, the most powerful one is the direct experience that we have. So if I have a direct experience which says I can go on stage, I can present, or I can go and jump out of an airplane or do anything that's scary, I go and do this thing and I will live and I'm safe and whatever, that direct experience is going to trump anything else. So you can say to me, oh my God, flying is so dangerous. And I'm like, no, it's not. Because in my experience, I get on a plane, I've done 100 flights and I haven't died once. So for me, it's safe. So I don't care what your experience is. This is my reality. Yeah. However, if I was on a plane once and it crash landed or something terrible happened, all the stats in the world that says that plane is the safest way of flying is never going to take away from my reality, which is they're really bloody dangerous, right? Because I've had that experience. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit like that. So ultimately, we want to show ourselves and demonstrate to ourselves that we are safe. And it really is. I say it's the greatest gift we can give ourselves as a human being is the perception of safety, because all of our bad behavior comes from not feeling safe, and all of our anger and all of our prejudice, all that comes from an innate sense of not feeling safe in us. Right, remember, direct experience, witness experience, taught experience. So for most people, you can't just jump straight in and challenge yourself. Tony Robbins is all about massive action, and sometimes in life we have to step up. We really have to step up. It can be exhausting and terrifying to live your life constantly like that. So for most of us, what you need to do is use all 3 of those ways of learning to develop that courage. So number one, you want to become your own teacher. So you want to, most people, that inner teacher is constantly saying you're not good enough, you're scared, you're weak, you're whatever, right? And we become the worst teacher for ourselves. So we have to become the best teacher for ourselves. So an educator of ourselves. We have to teach ourselves better lessons in life, right? The second thing is we have to go out and look for better examples. So witness experience. So I need to go and see, rather than thinking about the kid when I was at school that stood up in stage and vomited in front of everybody, and I'm using that to, that's in my head now, stopping me from speaking. I have to go and look at all the other evidence that I have, that this is a good thing to do or whatever it might be. So, and sometimes if you can use those 2 things, it can give you enough of a kickstart for the last one, which is the only real way you're ever going to get that experience. You have to step up and do it. You have to get up there, do something and show yourself. I can talk, let's talk parachuting, for example. If all you're thinking about is, the 1% of people that die, or whatever, there's 0.1% of people that die. If you're thinking about the parachute not opening, if you're thinking about falling to your death, that's a terrible teaching you're giving yourself. You're never going to get anywhere near the jumping. For most people, just jumping is not an option. So what you do is you say, right, well, millions of people do this all the time, and they don't die. You then look at the witness, look at all these people they're not dying. And then hopefully that gives you enough to go and do the jump yourself. Yeah. And fundamentally, that's where you've got to get to. At the end of the day, this, you have to do it yourself, and you have to show yourself that you're safe. And the more stuff you do, the more you challenge yourself like this, then the more you realize you're safe. And when the next challenge comes, you say, yeah, okay, so I survived all those other challenges. It was different to this challenge, but if I survived all of those, why wouldn't I survive this one? And then you start, and that's when you start, and that's when you might look from the outside and say, oh, you know what, that guy's got courage. What it really means is that person's learned that even when they're scared, or even when there's a challenge, or even when there's something happening that they're unsure of, they've developed that trust, they've developed that certainty that even if I can't guarantee an outcome, I know I'm going to be okay. You know what I mean? It's that. It's that. And
that's interesting. You use the word trust is quite an important word for your courage, is the trust in the process and in yourself. Yeah.
Trust for me, because what trust does is trust keeps you safe, right? It knows it makes you the perception. And I always say to you today, one of the greatest gifts you can have or give yourself is the perception of safety. There is no guarantee of safety. You know this. You know anything can happen right now.
Parachute can
anything
snap or
right?
whatever,
And equally, you know, I don't know, my electric. I could get bloody electrocuted down the wire or something. I'm sure it's happened to someone. I could walk out of here and, you know, get run over or something, or painful that sky. So of course, you know, absolute safety is an illusion, right? But if you imagine in certain aspects of your life, you feel safe. So when you jump in your car, I'm guessing you feel safe. Now, not everyone does, but most people, we feel safe in our car. We know that shit happens, and we know that people die in car crashes, but we don't feel it's going to happen to us, so we feel safe in our car, right? And because it's there's no certainty in this. What is it? We trust. I trust that I'm a good driver. I'm trusting that I'm not going to have an accident. I'm trusting. Don't know for sure. So if we can develop that sense of trust in ourselves, it's what I sometimes call the triangle of trust, right? So we have trust in ourselves. So I trust that I'm good enough. I'll trust that I'll be okay, you know, and then I'll trust in other people. So I'll trust that, you know, when I come on this webinar, I'll have faith in you, you know, I'll have faith that you're here to support me, that we're in this together, that we're, you know what I mean? You know, I have faith in my fellow man. And then believe in something higher than yourself. Now, again, this is not about being religious. It could just be believing in the natural order of things.
That idea of nature as well,
Nature, if someone is religious, it might be their version of God or something. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're a scientist, it can just be the natural order of the world. It could be, you know, if you're into chi
Cosmos,
or key or anything like that, right? So it doesn't matter, you know. For me, it's having those things in place. If I have faith in myself, I have faith in my fellow man, and I have faith in something else, like just the natural order of the world, the science of the world, the atomic nature of the universe, you know, that sort of shit. If you have those things in place, you have a strong equilateral triangle, that gives you a real sense of safety. And when you feel safe, that's when you can put yourself into unsafe environments.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And it's a perception, by the way. I'm not saying go and put your head in a crocodile's mouth. It's a perception of safety. So it's like, you know, if I go to a party that I don't know anyone in, I can perceive that as an unsafe environment, right? You know. However, if I trust in myself, trusting everybody else there, and trust in the natural order of things, that enables me to turn up and be there. And then once I'm there and I'm being there, at least I'm in the game now. If everyone turns out to be a bloody arsehole, I'll just go home. But at least I'm there in the game. You know, if you get on, you know, we're talking about bringing it back to what we're talking about here, like running clubs and groups. If you don't have anything of value to say, then find out. Don't make that assumption from this side of the experience. You know, you want to get into the experience, and from there we can start to learn. And if genuinely you don't have anything to say, you can either say, right, this isn't the right calling for me, or you sit and say, right, okay, I've learned from that. But you're in the game. You know, for me, most of life is about being in the game. And it's fear that stops us getting in the game. And we're using the word courage. There's a whole kind of different thing, but we're using the word courage. Courage kind of gets you in the game. You know, it gets you off the stands and onto the field. It gets you out of your 9-to-5 job where you want the security. It gets you into starting your own business or becoming an entrepreneur. It's the courage that gets you into that place. And then when you're in the game, now we're in the game, and you're going to lose some games, you're going to win some games, you're going to draw some games, you know, you're going to get your nose bloodied occasionally, you're going to score some awesome goals, but at least you're in the game.
And it's like I read from I think it was a psychologist. He said that for treating people who have anxiety, 80% of the anxiety was cured by exposure to the fear. The things that make them anxious, and staying in those situations that made them feel anxious for 100%. Longer.
I have a metaphor, which is get in or get out, right? So to get in or get out, it's that hanging on the end of fear is the really uncomfortable. Like it's like the hanging on the end, on the edge of a plane, about to jump is the scariest part, right? It's the hanging off the edge. Either jump or get back in the plane. You know, either those two are fine. It's the hanging on the edge. It's like when someone goes on a weight loss program, you know, get on the diet or just get out the diet. But hanging on the edge of a diet is miserable, right? And I think that's a lot of, when I talk about fear a lot in the old days, that's what I say. I say, listen, honestly, it's okay. There is a real option there to not do this thing. When you're confronted with fear, it's not about saying, I feel the fear, I'm going to do it anyway. It's not about just every time I get confronted, I'm going to challenge myself to better myself. It's an exhausting way of living your life. There is an option, right? I mean, the option is really simple. I present you with a great opportunity, like Ben. I say, right, you know what? I've got a great business opportunity. I need you to go 50 grand down on me, right? You're like, shit, man, what do I get 50 grand for? It's a great opportunity, but you're scared of losing the money. Understand, there is a choice. You don't have to you don't have to do it just because it's an opportunity, just because it might be good for you. There is an opportunity to say, you know what, I'll just back out of this one and I'll regroup and then I'll go again. But hanging on the end of the uncomfortable feeling of fear is a miserable place to be. It's like just
paralyzing. Yeah.
Just get in the game or get out. It's okay. When you get out, regroup and then go again if you want. There's that half hanging. I say to people all the time, we used to run empowerment events. So we used to run the firewalk events and stuff like that, the personal empowerment, and we used to do breaking arrows on your throat and all this sort of stuff. And we metaphor the arrow in the throat. So you put the arrow in the throat and you have to break the arrow. And that was my metaphor for this whole thing, which is, at the end of this point is the most uncomfortable place. Either get off the point or just get through it. Either way, you'll be fine. The worst place is with the arrow in your throat, just, half in, half out.
Yeah.
So again, speaking, clubs, whatever, you talk about, where do I start? Let's go right back to the circle. Where do I start? Well, it's that, get in or get out, don't hang in that uncomfortable place. Like, it's a bit like, I bring it back to simplicity, like, asking a girl out or a guy out or whatever. And you're there, and the most miserable place is sitting there saying, I really want to ask her out. I really want to, but I can't. But I really want to, but I can't. And you go home and just cry yourself to sleep again, because you weren't man enough to do it. It just destroys your self-esteem. Understanding that moment, there's an opportunity that is presenting itself to me. I have a genuine choice here. I can go for it, and it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be scary, and that's okay because I know that's what's going to happen. Or I can not do this. I can get myself out of this place of pain. I'll regroup and I'll come back and I'll play it another day. I'll come back and I'll fight again another day. And it's okay to have those choices. I think too many people in personal development, they feel like, I have to keep moving forward. I have to keep smashing. Sometimes it's okay to just pull back a bit, reassess, regroup, and then go again. But when you're right there, most people, when they give themselves the opportunity, most people go for it. If I say to you, Ben, you can go or not go, most of the time people will still go. But just being aware of the choice, actually, quite often, people will still choose to go. But when they only see the pain and the misery and they're hanging on the edge, that's when it goes.
Yeah.
That's when they get caught in that trap.
Yeah, so just be more decisive as well on top of that.
I lot of people, I get them out of impulsive and into decisive, and there's a difference. So a lot of people are impulsive and they think they're decisive, but they're not. They're impulsive. The impulsive can get you into all kinds of problems, right? I'll tell you who was impulsive. People like Irwin, the Australian that got killed with the manta rays and stuff. He was an impulsive guy. He was always sticking his head in crocodiles and he was always fiddling with shit he shouldn't be fiddling with, right? And that will get you eventually. Being decisive is about where you measure this, you weigh the situation up, you decide on what is the best course of action, and then you go for it. What I always talk about sometimes is regardless of how I feel. So it's like, I'm scared, but if it's the right thing to do, it doesn't really matter what I feel. We're going anyway. It's that kind of idea.
Yeah. There was one other thing you mentioned about having a tangible goal in your speech.
Yes.
This is completely off topic, but we've really covered courage and confidence, which is really helpful. It's made me think a lot about, so going back to that again, sorry, it's made me think a lot about how I've went through the fears and the anxiety of doing things that I felt a wee bit uncomfortable about, but I went and made the decision to do them. Yeah. And now that I'm doing them, they're like you're saying, comfortable. So it's really a good reminder for me on basically we just need to take from the experiences that we had when we were being courageous and use that for the next step up, and remember that those steps will keep coming. That's what I've taken away from that. It was really
100%. I think stop. It's like, don't stop trying to run away from the boogeyman. It's like I see a lot of people, myself included, by the way. You think if I can get to the other side of this, when I get to the other side of this, then I'll be okay. And what happens is you'll get to the other side, you'll be okay, but then there'll be another side to get over. And when you realize actually that it's a bit like playing Angry Birds or playing any kind of game or app or whatever, there's levels to the game, and there's no rules on how far you have to go in this game, you know. But if you want to keep leveling up, you have to learn the lessons at the levels, right? So you do the lower levels, and they give you the lessons that you need to get to the next level up, the next level up. Yeah. So for me, it's like understanding that, like just like any game, right? And I do refer sometimes to life and business like a game, you know, is that if you want to go to the next level, you have to learn the lessons you need to get to that, to earn your right at the next level, you know? Yeah. And sometimes, just like computer games, there's a boss level, you know, the boss, you have to get past the boss. Yeah. Sometimes there's a really big ass challenge you have to get to the other side of. And it could be your first speaking gig or your first live, or it could be your first, I don't know, TV appearance or talking to 10,000 people or whatever it is you're scared of, you know? And sometimes the leveling up presents itself as this incredible like challenge, you know, it's like this big, huge challenge. What it is like, it's like all the lessons today compiled in this one challenge. And if I get to the other side of this challenge, I level up. But don't start thinking like, oh, I need to run away from the boogeyman. Like if I get to the other side, then I'll be okay, you know, because yeah, you will be, you'll just be on the other side of where you are now. But assuming like, you know, these guys, you know, the people in your group and that, and yourself, you're in personal development, you're reading the business books, you're reading the personal development books. It's about growing in life, you know. When you grow in life, you're going to get confronted with challenges. So you mentioned the goals. For me, you know, I don't run a therapy model. A therapy model is like, you know, you spend the first 40 years of your life kind of with all your issues, and then you spend the next 40 years of your life trying to undo the first 40 years of your life. You know, it's that kind of model. There's so much we could work on as individuals. For me, it's important to have a goal, because if I'm here, so if I'm over here and this is why I'm going over here, what are the things that are specifically blocking me from where I'm going, and what is specifically stopping me from being who I need to be to keep doing what I need to do? Yeah, I might have an issue over here somewhere, but if it's not in the way of me living my life, then who cares? It's only the things that are in the way of where I'm going. So once you've got a goal, you know, once you've set really good goals and really clear goals and everything else, once you're there, then it's saying, okay, so what are the actions that I need to take? But also it's like, what are the fears and what are the personal issues and what are my limiting, you know, my self-imposed limitations? What's in the way from here to here? Yeah. And then you build a plan and a strategy for overcoming those. And it's why I talk about the two journeys. You know, you've got the external journey in life, which is your goals, your outcomes, your objectives. And it's literally the walking through life and the going from here to here. That's your external journey. But like any good book or any good film, there's an internal journey you have to go on as well. And the internal journey is often the harder journey. You know, Sun Tzu, The Art of War, he talks about the three enemies. You know, he talks about the enemy out there. He talks about the enemy that is the terrain, the environment. He talks about the enemy in here. And he says the enemy in here is the hardest one to defeat. So in any kind of, you know, in terms of success or growth or anything, you have to understand there's always the two paths. You have to walk them. It's the external path, which is the goal, everything else. And then there's the internal path, which is I need to level up so that I can earn my right to progress on that journey. And just as a point for the people listening on just audio, when George said the people in here, that's in your mind. Oh, right. I just thought of that there. In your head, not in this room with me. No. In here, inside your head. Yeah. It's your own. Yeah, that's a really good one. I have listened to that book, but I don't think I've taken it in as clearly as yourself. Yeah, no, it's just understanding that there are, you know, there's three enemies, there's three things that, you know, there's three, you know, there's the whole of strategy in there as well, which is really good stuff. But the really interesting stuff is to realize that there are three enemies preventing you from achieving what you want to achieve or being who you want to be. And the hardest one to defeat is the one inside your own head. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put that. Yeah. So where I was wanting to go with was the tangible and soft kind of promises that you give people when you're selling a group coach, coaching ongoing session or mastermind group. Yeah. One of the questions I had about that is, like you had, for example, I guess you had the mastermind already moving at the point where you got someone who's making 250 million a year. Did you say? In one of your mastermind groups? About 2.5 million. 2.5 million. Sorry, I've taken that down wrong. But yeah, even at that, if you're if you're running the mastermind, it's just like you don't have to be the expert. You don't have to be making more than everyone else in the group. No.
where do you kind of put yourself when you're,
well,
you mentioned administrator, and if someone's making more money than you and you're teaching them with that tangible goal, what do you do with that?
Do you know what? It's I tell you what, there's a philosophy out there, there's an attitude out there that kind of really pisses me off, and it's the attitude that, you know, somehow you have to be either the best at something or brilliant at something to be able to teach other people. It's not true. You have to be the best teacher of something, and they are very different. And it annoys me when people say, oh, you know, I wouldn't go to a personal trainer that wasn't ripped and shredded and whatever. Actually, it's not true. Just because they're the best, just because they've done it for themselves, they may not be a great personal trainer. They may not be a great inspirer. So when you're running a group, do not think for a minute you have to be, you know, the most successful person in the room. In fact, you don't want to be the most successful person in the room. You know, you always want people in there to inspire you. You don't have to be the greatest or the best at something. You know what I mean? You just don't. What you need to do is you need to be the best at what it is you bring. And one thing to the game, and that's the thing you're best at. That's the only thing you need to be best at. If the thing you're best at is getting people in a room, and what you're good at is networking, and what you're good at is that, the fact that if you're running a 100 grand business and there's someone in there doing £1 million, who cares? Because you're not showing them how to make £1 million, right? That's not going to work, right? What you're doing is you're bringing what your little piece is, and that's what you're owning, and you own that little bit, and that's what gives you the right to be listened to, or the right in the room. But equally, you know, the greatest football coaches were not the greatest footballers, and in fact, the greatest footballers didn't become great coaches. And the world is full of people where someone was excellent at something, but not a great teacher of something. So for me, being a great teacher of something is a different skill set to being great at the thing. So when I used to do like fighting, let's take fighting for example, right? So my last fighter that I worked with one-to-one has went pro last year, right? So I worked with him. He's a 15-year-old kid. I'm going back now about 8-9 years ago since I've done that. And I was working with this kid, 15 years old. He's literally, he went professional heavyweight boxer now. Last year he stepped up professional. And the truth of the matter is, right, it's like I didn't need to be better at him at fighting for him to still learn a lot from me, because what I've got is 20 years of experience teaching fighters. And I was always a much better coach than I ever was a fighter myself. And I think people really get bogged down with that. It goes back to that confidence of what right do I have to be here and everything else. Yeah. You know, if you're no good at teaching and you're no good at doing it, then you probably shouldn't be in that environment. But honestly, there are people out there who absolutely are incredible at getting the best out of other people. You know, my job as a going back to this day when I was a fighter, you know, coach, you know, for these guys, my job was always the same. My job was to make them the best fighters they could, and it was all, you know, it was always about making them better fighters. So when I work with business owners and that, you know, I'm not sitting there saying, here I am, my job is to get you to where I am. Now, some of my programs and some of my workshops are all about, here I am now, let me show you how I got here, and let me show you what you can do and learn from that. Definitely, I do bring that. Yes. Some of my programs, there's no question, some of my programs, I'm here, but I work with multi-million-pound businesses, and what I do is I educate people who are ahead of me in business on the next level, because of the experience I have of working at that level. It's not teaching them, this is what I've done. It's teaching them, this is what I know, and this is what I've learned from other people. And this makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think people get really caught up in that a lot. And it doesn't help, because a lot of people do judge that. You know, they'll judge someone saying, oh, well, you know, who are you to run the, you know, I don't know, the British Rugby Club or something, you know, the GB Rugby. You were never a top level rugby player. Well, who gives a shit? You're the best coach, you know. You're the best this, you're the best whatever. Yeah. And I think that's really important to remember. Own the bit that you are great at. And sometimes that bit could be that you're just great at training people to a high level, higher than yourself. Think about Usain Bolt's trainers. None of them run as fast as Usain Bolt. He's the world champion. He's the fastest time over 100 meters. So whoever works with Usain Bolt is never going to be as good at running as Usain Bolt. So why the hell would he have coaches and mentors? Because there's people out there that know a lot more than him, even though they can't run faster than him.
Yeah.
And I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
And I do think it's important, because I think a lot of people, it goes back to that initial thing we talked about, the confidence, which is, well, why would they listen to me? You know what I mean? And you've got to find that for yourself. You know, you've got to find, what is it, you know? And you know, if you get let's say you take your book club to 10,000 people. You might be the poorest person in there, right? You wouldn't be the best person to coach me on money, okay? But if you sit there and say, what I am is I've developed this culture, I've developed this network, I've developed this thing, and that's what I bring to the table. That's what I own.
Yeah. You just focus on your core skills that have come to you naturally, that you've got results in, and don't worry about being the best in the group.
But also talking about the group coaching, the masterminding. You know, it's free yourself from thinking you've got to be, you know, the biggest business in the room, or if you were running a, I don't know, you know, if there's a personal trainer listening to this, you know, they want to run a boot camp or something, you know, and they get in their own head thinking, oh, you know, am I fit enough? You don't have to be. You just got to be the best inspirer, the best motivator, the best club runner, the best whatever, the best motivator, the best, you know, that's what you've got to do, that bit. You know, don't feel, you know, that said, of course, you know, I'm not going to coach, you know, 10 million pound businesses and how to get 100 million, because I'm not there. So I don't know that, right? Does it make sense? The bit I do know is the culture, the environment, the, you know, the attitudes and all that sort of stuff. And the fact that my business isn't running at 10 million doesn't make no difference. It doesn't stop me being an expert at that.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. I think I could probably ask you questions all night. I have got more questions for you. So what I'll do instead is I'll ask you to answer them as briefly as possible.
Got it. Right, I will.
Like rapid fire questions, okay?
Got it.
This might be a hard one. What's a good size for a coaching group and why?
Online.
It might be hard to keep short.
No, online, I don't think there's any real limit on that personally. Offline, for me, 40.
Okay.
I can explain why, but I'll just say
40.
Yeah, offline. So if you're in a physical group, I find over 40, you start to lose the connection with the people. It becomes more of a presentation than a group coach.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, you know, 40 is the maximum. I find about 30 is spot on. That's me. Right?
30 is the sweet spot.
That's your call. Yeah, that's your quick answer. Go on.
Okay.
I won't explain why.
What's the difference between a mastermind and a group coaching?
Group coaching is where you have you take a group through. This is my definition, of course. You take a group through a process. So you have 10 people, and we're all talking about confidence, say, or we're talking about fear, and each person is working on their own self, and I'm taking them through a process of coaching them, and I'm coaching them all at the same time through that process. A mastermind is where you have a number of people in a room, and you would share it into the room, and the room would also then help you back or add value back. So even with the group coaching program, I would always operate a mastermind environment. But pure group coaching is I'm taking you all through a process together, but you're all on your own process. Mastermind is it's a round table. You throw it in. Everyone has their say. Everyone has their input.
Okay. What two things make a good coach?
A good coach, right? So a good coach. It's interesting, isn't it? What's a good coach? So I think, okay, two things. I think. What are the two top things? I think.
Or just go for one.
Listening. It sounds really, okay, no. I think listening. So I think a bad coach is someone that just belligerently pushes their own agenda. So I think a good coach is someone that can adapt and listen. So if I'm talking to you like this and you're not getting it, rather than just keep smashing like this, I say this again, I forget it's an audio, rather than just keep piling in from one angle, what I do is I adjust and I can say it in a number of different ways so that you'll get it. So if I can adapt my message, and if your background was boxing, we'll use boxing analogy. If your background was ballet, I could use ballet as an analogy. So I think that the number one thing is to be able to deliver your message in multiple angles, if I can use that as a phrase. So multiple angles so that I can hit you from a different angle. So if you're not getting it because we have a different perspective or different background or different experiences, I can say the same thing in 20 different ways.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. How did you know I done ballet?
Just guess it.
Nah. That's really it. That was the main questions is cool. Covered. I think I've got a lot of the questions I had, and hopefully other people had who are listening into this or watching this.
Well, I think, you know, I know we've gone off tangent. I've taken it off tangent, but what it is, I think, is because what we have talked about here is, you know, number one is we're talking about what I talked about on stage, which is the running of groups and clubs. But then when we talk about things like fear and confidence and courage, I think it's important that we go down that route, because it is that whole philosophy I have of the internal, external journey. Because otherwise, I just give you a framework and it's meaningless, because, you know, your listeners sit there and go, oh, well, it sounds brilliant, but what have I got to say? What are those? You know what I mean? And then you get the internal blocks. Yeah. So I hope you don't mind that, even though, you know, we were talking about group coaching, we have gone on to that personal development or that fear side. But I think it's so important, because the world's full of good strategy, right? It's not about the strategy. It's about being the person that can execute on that strategy. Yeah. And that's why whenever I talk, I can't help it. We're always going to end up on mindset and attitude.
Well, that's what preeminence is. And a good coach is someone who can take what he thinks is the best for the people listening as well. So that's important that you took us off in that direction. And I learned something I didn't expect to learn today. So
good.
That a lot, yeah. What do people do now from this?
Yeah.
What steps in its briefest form? What steps should we take?
Yeah, you keep saying, I know you're scared of me now, aren't you? Because you know how I go off on things. Okay, I'll keep it all succinct now, right?
No, I'm just
steps in terms of
time as well.
Me, I'm fine now. So when we talk about steps, you mean what, in terms of the masterminds or the group coaching or something?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Mastermind.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I think the first thing you got to really look at is as a model, right? You want to go. You want to get yourself down to number one. You've got to really find what is the format, the structure, and the model that's going to serve me. Which is the one that's going to be right for me? Does this make sense? So is it group coaching we talked about? Is it the club model? Is it the mastermind model? Hopefully people are starting to formulate an idea now, but there's loads of things you got to look at there, like your target audience, your market, how much money have they got, your location, your geography, frequency of the club. There's a lot of things that I talked about, obviously, at Expert Empires. It's getting that model as right as you can. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what it's about. Because if you have a bad model on the back end, you can execute a bad model well, and you're still going to get a crap result. So you want to make sure you get that modeling right and everything else. I think that's probably the best way forward. Get the model right for you. Yeah. What does it look like? How many people? Based around my skill set and everything else. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. What, like as you said in your talk as well, do what feels comfortable for you, and then, as we've talked about here, have the courage and go and do it.
Push yourself as far as you can. You know, if you're able to take massive leaps forward, then take massive leaps. If taking massive leaps is too much for you, and you end up paralyzed doing nothing, then take smaller steps. As long as you're moving forward, I think that's the important thing. I'm thinking about if someone's keen. I think here's the thing: if someone's listening now and they are keen to look at their to launch their own model or whatever it might be. I don't know if it's possible for them to email me or not, because actually it'd be too late by the time this is aired, but I'm doing a webinar, and I'll be quite happy to link anyone that wants access to that recorded webinar. And that webinar really goes through a lot of what we're talking about. So I don't know if is that something we can do?
Yeah. We'll get a link for that.
Okay.
So the next thing I wanted to mention is that we have the Kick Arse goal setting for £1.
Yeah, £1. Yeah,
so £197.
Yeah, so this was something I wanted to do for your guys. I've been looking at what you're up to. I've been listening to what you've been talking about. I know you're into goals yourself. I heard you talking on a live the other day. You're chatting about goals and everything else. And I know you've got a business community and everything else. So what I'd like to do really is if people are into goals or they want to explore goals, whatever, I've developed it's what I call kick-ass goal setting, right? So a kick-ass goal setting strategy, methodology, structure. It's what we use in success groups for 6.5 years. I've been honing it and developing it. Last year, we achieved 20,000 goals across the club, doing this.
Wow.
And the whole process takes you from setting that goals, right? So we start with the big dream. We then take the big dream, solidify it into goals. We then work from the year, and then we then compress those goals until we end up with pure little diamonds, these really good goals. And the reason I developed the Kick-Ass goal setting process was because there's nothing out there that is thorough. There's a lot of people out there talking about goals, and it's all about the ambition and think big and go big and everything else, but that doesn't really translate into achieving anything. It goes into dreaming, and there's other people in there who are all about the realistic goal setting, and it's that sort of SMART goals and everything else. What I've done is develop a process of going from one to the other. So we start with the big dream, and then we solidify that into tangible goals that stretch us and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's a whole process. And I thought, given your community and everything else, I'd like to give that away. Unfortunately, my online system won't allow me to give it away. So you have to go through the payment process. So I've made it the cheapest the system allow me. So it's £1. Right?
Yeah.
So if you put the link up and everything else, but
is that a live event that they need to have their body?
No,
or is that online?
No, it's not. It's an online program. You can go at your own pace, but basically, it's thorough. I'm telling you now, it's not for the faint-hearted. This is not about tuning in for half an hour and going, "Yeah, man, I'll take a world." It's a thorough process that takes you through all your goal setting, looking at the goals that are vulnerable, bringing strategy to support those goals, and takes you all the way through to the end conclusion. It's every single member of my success group and mastermind. Every one of them follows this process for setting their own goals. So I sell that externally to the club and everything else. But I thought, right, you know what? I'd love to offer it to your community, because I think starting with goals in business and in life, it's where am I going is number one. If I don't know where I'm going, how can I possibly ever get there? So I think I was looking at what can I offer your guys as real value. I think if anyone's willing to put the work in and go through this process, and it is a kick-ass process, I promise you. But when you get to the end of it, you'll have the best, most solid goals you possibly can that stretch you but are completely achievable, and you'll have a strategy for achieving them. So I'd like to offer that, and I think you'll put all this up there and everything else. But
Thanks a lot. So for people listening, and I'll obviously put this in the show notes and wherever I share this video and podcast, it was the promotion code was Ben Buddy, all
Ben
one
Buddy.
word in capitals.
Yeah, that's right. So if you go to URL is biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk/kick-ass, not kick-ass, kick-ass goal setting. So biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk/kick-ass goal setting. And as long as you use Ben Buddy, because you're a buddy of Ben's, then literally it's £1, which is the cheapest I could make it given the system that we operate and everything else. I tell you now, if they follow that process to the end, I all but guarantee the fact they will have the best goals they've ever set in their life. Yeah.
Well, it will definitely be getting shared on the thread that we're talking about goals in Ben's Business Book Club for sure. And across all my social media. So
brilliant. Excellent. Yeah, excellent.
Okay. And I've really enjoyed this chat, George.
Oh, do you know what? So have I. Actually, do you know what? Honestly, mate, and that's for me. That's what this is about. It's not about me coming on here and just lecturing or whatever. I think you have a nice interactive chat, see where it takes us. I've enjoyed it. You've enjoyed it. So hopefully, people listening will enjoy it as well.
Yeah. So, well, thanks for your time and thanks for coming on.
No, you're welcome, mate. Thanks for having me.
Educational for me.
Awesome.
And helpful. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Nice one, buddy.